Yeah, so now we know like where to start and what and all we do and the result of this particular MDM, right? So that is what we discussed, right? To create master data. Yeah? We go step by step, landing, staging, loading, match, merge, and create a master data. Yeah? So once we do that, next step is going to be what we need to start getting into. How do we communicate this master data to what external systems? Yeah? I repeat, how do you communicate what master data to what external systems? Yeah? So that's where we have what interface where MDM hub data need to be communicated to different consumers. Yeah? So that's what we do over here. Yeah? So there's a question from Ash. In the load process, pivot table will have multiple records from different sources. What happens to those records after merge? Yeah. So whatever master data created, right? It will be here. Rest will be sent to history table. Yes. So that's what happens. Yeah. Fine. So now let us start getting into what next step, which is going to be what to communicate. To communicate that we use what different interfaces. Yeah? Like we have XML with a SOAP protocol, or we can also communicate by using message queues, which means message queues normally we use it for events. Yeah? And then an XML with a SOAP we can use for events and also for data, and ETL is purely for data, which means get the master data from here and send it to what these consumers. Yeah? So that's what we do with this particular interface part. Fine. So once we understand like how to make this particular master data to be communicated to different consumers, right? Next step is going to be what we need to start getting into what understanding of architecture of this particular MDM. So that's what we need to take a look at. Yeah. So which means what kind of architecture that would be followed by this MDM, and then how this particular what architecture what can be used in order to what create the master data. Yeah? So that's what we need to take a look at now. Yeah? So to answer that, we have what this particular slide where we can see what there are three broader layers that we have within this MDM hub. Yeah, like we have what client, server, and data and meta layer. So these are the three layers that we have within this EMDM hub. Yeah? Now, once we know this, next step is what we need to start getting into how this particular what layers are going to work. Let us try to understand that. Yeah. So let us start getting into how this particular each layer works. Yeah? The client, the name of the client is what? Informatica MDM Hub Console, which will be used by three roles of people, namely designers or developers, and second, administrators, and third, data stewards. These are the three roles of people who can make use of single client, which is going to be the hub console. Yeah, but there are several tools within this client. Some tools will be used by this guy, some tools will be used by this guy, some tools will be used by these guys. Yeah, so that's what we have within what the hub console, right? Now, once we do that, next step is going to be what each role guys would perform this. So for example, if we take a designer or developers, we use this particular role in order to what? Perform design and development. I repeat, we use this particular role, which is going to be what? Design and development role to design and develop MDM jobs. For example, we talked about landing, staging, loading, all that, right? For each of these layers, we have what separate jobs like landing jobs, staging jobs, load jobs, match jobs, merge jobs, and so on. Yeah. Who is going to configure that? Designers or developers. Yeah. Now, the next is what administrator, which we all know, right? We use the administrator or admin role in order to set up global properties or in order to configure, let's say, database registration or user creation, group creation, and so on, right? All such operations will be done by the administrator. And third role is going to be the crucial and very important role within MDM, which we call data steward. Yeah? So data steward role, which is responsible for what? To perform the data management activities. For example, any data change that is required to create what? Master data, right? Who does that? Data steward. Just remember that line. We'll elaborate as we go on. Yeah? Now, the next is what we have only clients with different roles we discuss within this client, but there has to be something to service, right? That is where we have what? Server layer. Yeah? I repeat, there is a separate layer which we call server layer, which will be used in order to service the request that we get from one of these role or mix of different roles. Yeah. So now the first and foremost server, which is going to be what? Which is going to be what? Hub server, which will be used in order to service core and essential aspects of MDM. I repeat, hub server will be used in order to service core and essential activities of MDM hub. Yeah? For example, master reference manager, which is a separate module that is going to help us to create what? Master data or system of reference record based on what? Different sources. How can you get Yeah. So now the next is what we have hierarchy manager module, which will be used in order to what perform data management activities. I repeat, this particular module, which is what hierarchy manager module, will be used in order to perform the data management activities. Yeah, especially hierarchy data management. Yeah, let's say consumer to customer relationship, or customer to vendor relationship, and so on, right? For everything, you'll have what hierarchy defined. So which means what? We can have multiple sub hierarchies for each domain, let us say customer domain or whatever. So how are we going to what come up with what good data for this particular what hierarchical data? That's where we use what hierarchy manager module to take care of it. Fine. Now the next is what we have activity manager, which is AM, right? So which will be used to take care of what events. Yeah. So we have different events like what receive event, send event, and so on, right? We'll have what different triggers or events that we have. So whatever change that happens, to make it very simple, right? Within this MDM hub, how do you make that particular change, what I call available to different external applications? That is where what activity manager is going to what help us on doing that. Yeah. So any event change that happens, right? Those events will be taken care by using what activity manager. That's it. Yeah. So these are the what we call some of the models that we have in the hub server. Now the next is what Clun server. So Clun server will be used in order to perform what different data cleansing activities. I repeat, Clun server will be used in order to perform what different data cleansing activities like standardization, enrichment, all that, right? Whatever request that we send related to what cleansing, right? Those requests will be serviced by cleanse server. Just remember that. Yeah? And then the next step is going to be what we have another server, which is going to be the match server, yeah, which will be used in order to what identify matching records. For example, let us say you get this match request from developers. Then what happens? Who is going to service that particular request? So that's where the match server will be used for. That's it. So output of this particular match service will be stored in the backend, which we call in a separate layer, which we call hub store or data meta layer. Yeah? So we use a term for what data and meta layer in MDM, which we call hub store. So hub store is a place where we are going to store what master database information, plus we also use hub store to store what ORS, which is operational reference store or operational record store. No? So there are two parts of databases within the hub store. One master, second ORS. That's it. Yeah? Now, when to choose what? Remember, in order to create a master data, first we need to identify a domain, which means what? Which domain that we are talking about. Yeah? So are we talking about customer domain? Then we need to create what? Customer master data. To do that, we need to create a separate ORS which we call customer ORS, right? So that's what we need to do just to get started with what MDM Hub. First we need to what? Start creation of ORS for any domain. Similarly, if you deal with other domains like a product domain, location, supplier, vendor and so on, right? For each domain we need to create what? Separate ORS database. Remember, yeah? There's a question from San. Is ORS different for customer versus product domain? Underlying tables will be same. Only thing is the way we build a model would be different and the way we create a master data would be different. Yeah? But underlying backend repository tables will be same for all the domains. Yeah? In order to have clear what we call distinguished difference between or among several domains, we create what? Separate ORS database. Yeah? But common repository table. There are some specific repository tables which are specific for customer, product and location and so on. They are applicable for what? For universal accepted model. Yeah? But rest will be same, which is common repository tables will be same for all the domains. Yeah? Fine. For each domain, which is what product, you will have product specific universal model, right? That differs. You will have corresponding tables, all that, which is different. Similarly for other domains. That's it, right? That is about domain specific databases, which we call ORS databases. Once we understand that, there is one more database which we call master database, which will be used by the administrator. Remember, I repeat, there is one more database which we call master database, which will be used by the administrator. Yeah? So for what? To create a user, where do you store it? In master. To register something, which is database, whatever, where do you store it? In master. Similarly, any number of ORS databases will be controlled by administrator through what? Master database. That is why we can see what? There is a one-to-many relationship between what? The master and the ORS databases. Yeah? There's a question here, but when ORS is created, it will create irrespective of domain for common tables, but if you specify what domain specific, that we are going to get it from a DOM from Informatica, which differs from domain to domain. So now the next is what? So there is a one-to-many relationship between what this particular what master to ORS. Yeah? That's what we can see over here. So as a whole, this particular architecture, which is Informatica MDM, follows what? SOA architecture, which is what? Service oriented architecture, where we are going to express everything, which is what? Everything means what? Hub activities in terms of what? Services, and those services will be expressed in terms of EAR files, we call here enterprise archive files. In MDM, we have what? Different what we call types of deployment, what we call different types of deployments, like EAR, we have WAR, Web Archive, other is what? JAR, one of them. Yeah. So I'm trying to explain most of the things, because if you play a role of administrator, right, then those things will be useful. Yeah. Or else they are not required for developers. Yeah. So there's a question from Ash. Master database created manually or created when you install MDM? Oh, that's a good question. This will be created automatically. There is a separate SQL script which we call setup.sql, when you run it, we are going to create master database. Apart from that, we'll create what default ORS database. So on top of that, if you want to create domain specific databases, then there is a separate script which we call setup ORS script, through which we can create n number of ORS databases. Yes, clear? So that's it. Yeah. Now let us try to make these three layers to talk to each other. So how do you make them to collaborate? Which means what? Let us say this particular role guys, let's say they have just created a stage job. Now if they issue or if they run that particular stage job, what happens? Request will be sent to this guy, then on to this guy, where it will be serviced. Once this guy is going to service that, output of that will be stored onto the respective ORS database which you logged in. When you log in, right, we select ORS and start logging onto the app console. That's it. Once it is done, then you'll get a response back to this guy, then on to requester, where we could able to see what status of that particular request. Fine. So that's it. Similarly, let us say data steward, they have done some data management operations like creation of a record. Then once they create a new record or modify an existing record, then what happens? Request will be sent to the hub server, where it is going to take a look at whether it could able to service. If not, it will be delegated to match, and then finally the change will be stored under the ORS only. Which means what? This particular role guys and this particular role guys, they are going to make use of what? ORS database. Just remember that. Yeah. Clear? Because what steward does, they are going to take a look at what where there is a data change required. Where do you have data which is in ORS, which is operational data, so which can be seen by these guys and start making the data changes. So that's what happens with this data steward role. Yeah, fine. Now the next thing is going to be what? Let us say admin, they have done some administrative operations. Then what happens? This request again will be sent to hub server. Hub server will take the responsibility of what servicing or the admin request. Once it is serviced, output of that will be stored onto the master database. So that's what happens with all the administrative requests. Clear? Once it is done, you'll get a response back to this guy, then on the requester, where we could able to see the status, like if it is registered, successful. If not, we could able to see the reason why it is failed. That's it. Similarly for statuses for other requests that we receive from designers or developers or from stewards. That's it. Yeah? So that's about very easiest way to understand this particular Informatica MDM architecture. Yeah? So once we do that, next step is going to be what? We need to start getting into how are we going to make this particular hub to be communicated to external applications like a DNB or Salesforce or portal application or simple any external application where they need what? Master data information. So for that we use what? This particular SIF. I repeat, we are going to use what? SIF in order to make this particular MDM hub data to be communicated to what external applications. Yeah? So that's what happens as part of this what integration or interface between these two guys, external applications and MDM hub. So SF is a services integration framework, which is going to be the what important part. Fine. So that's it. Any questions here? There's a question from Ash. Explain HM. What type of request it receives? Mainly from data steward. So data steward can perform data change that we have it in hierarchy. Then request will come over here. This guy is going to service it. Output of that will be stored onto the ORS. So that's where hierarchy manager tool or hierarchy manager module will take care of that. Yes. Fine. There's a question here. Do you log in as admin or designer login? This guy will take a decision. Yeah? Whether we need to supply admin role or developer role, but we log in here as a admin. That's why we could able to see all the tools that we have in the hub console. So, fine. One more question, little deep for ORS creation for customer versus product versus supplier. Yeah, remember, so customer, the way we build a model for customer which differs from other domains, right? So there are, let's say, entities like a customer and let us say address. Yeah? So there will be one customer with many addresses. So let's say there are two entities and build a model. So in let us say universal model, you'll have these two entities. When you try to create a ORS, right, we get a dump from Informatica saying that this contains what? These two entities. So when you create a ORS, you will have a model which contains that. That's a simple example. Similarly, let us take a product. Product with what product category? Let's say two entities. I'm just taking a very simple example. Then we need to use a dump of product which contains only these two. When you create a ORS, we use that dump so that model would contain that. That is product ORS. Apart from that, there will be some common repository tables like C repo system, MRM system, and we have trust tables. We have what we call other tables which are common for any domain. Yeah. So we have common tables and specific tables or specific repository elements for each ORS. That is where what different ORS databases would come in. So clear? Want me to get into some more details? If not clear, please let me know so that I'll get into some more. Yeah. So there is a question here. So how is the communication happens in architecture wise? Using SIF between what? MDM. Oh, between MDM console, hub server, client server. Huh? Through what? Can you guess how it happens? Because these services are deployed in the hub, right? In the server, which is a JBoss application server. So what happens here is the communication here. If we talk, so let me just talk about this. Yeah. So this is what web-based client, right? So web client, which is what let's say console, whatever. Yeah. Now, so who is going to or where to send this particular request here? We send it to what? Web server, Apache IIS, whatever, and then it will be sent to app server, which could be JBoss or what WebLogic or WebSphere, and then you'll have what specific services corresponding to hub server, LAN server, MAS server. Then output of that will be stored in some database. Let's say here we call that as hub store. This is what is going to be the flow happens. So clear? So this is the communication. Hub console here, it will be sent to this guy. It will have specific services. It will be serviced. Output of that will be stored onto the respective database. The database could be master or ORS. We can still elaborate that. For example, let us take google.com. How it works? Can you guess? Same flow. So without web server it doesn't work. Without app server it doesn't work. So that is why google.com is what? The server name or host name. Yes or no? Yeah. So whatever request that we send, right? It's a simple thin client request, search request. How this request will be serviced? Can you guess? So we send it from here, right? To be sent to this guy, then to this guy. Within that, within what? Within application server, it will look for what specific service, which we call search service. If we have it, it will be serviced. Once it is serviced, we are going to get what response back to the requester, where they could able to see the search results based on whatever they would ask for in a simple text box. All the search results you are going to get it through what? Service. That's what happens. Same concept for all the web-based what applications. This architecture is same. Yeah? Only thing is the way we do is different, but this web services or web servers, app servers, those things will be same irrespective of any web application that we check. Yeah? Fine. So that's about simple way to understand, sir. You want me to elaborate that? Is it clear now? Which means what this particular architecture follows what? Web-based. Yeah? Which means what? This style. Yeah? So because everything will be dealt by using what? Web console or hub console, whatever. Yeah? So this is what is the client. Yeah? So that's why we don't need to install this. Instead we just supply URL, start getting into it. Yeah? Fine. So once we do that, next step is what we can start getting into, like what are the different MDM hub components that we have within this Informatica MDM. Yeah? So to answer that, we need to get into what this particular slide, where we can see what different components over here. Yeah, fine. So we have what different components over here. Yeah, like right from, let us say we have model. Let us talk about core hub components. Then once we finish that, then we'll get into what sources part and targets part and the external interfaces part. Yeah? We'll talk about one by one. Yeah? The first and foremost thing is going to be what? Core part of MDM, which is going to be the what MDM hub layer, where we can see what different components right from model 2 till what event notification or sync or unification, right? So let us start with one by one. So the first and foremost thing here is what? Model, which is going to help us in order to represent input data or input requirement to what? User understandable form, which we call graphical form. That's it. So in simple terms, model is going to be the visual representation of the data. That's it. Yeah. So there is a question here in this diagram, which one is SIF? So this part, this and this. Yeah. Fine. Mainly this we use SIF. Yeah. SIF is interface for third party. Fine. So which means what? Model is what visual representation, right? Now, can you see here? It's a multi-entity. As we all know that this Informatica MDM is what? A multi-domain master data management tool. Yes or no? So that is why the way we build a model for one domain which differs from others, right? So that is why if you at a given point in time we are going to pick up one domain and start building a data model. So that's where what model component would come. Yeah? For each, which means for each domain we need to build a model. But where do you build it? Whether we could build it within this hub, or we need to build it from outside, which is what, like we have many third-party modeling tools, right? Like open source modeling tools, we have Erwin modeling tool, we have Oracle Designer, and we have many other modeling tools. But wherever you build it, yeah, we have to build it based on what each domain. Once you build it, then we also have a way to integrate. I'll talk about it when we talk about external what interfaces through which we can integrate and get third-party model to this particular MDM hub. Yeah? So that's where what model part would come in. Yeah? There's a question here. In terms of software installation, it is one installation for different domains? Yes, software is same. There's no difference with respect to software. Only thing is business wise it is different. Yeah, software will be same. So underlying database that dump which will be changed, that is anyway will be taken care as part of ORS, yeah, which differs from domain to domain, right? So with this we know like how to create what a model. Yeah. So remember, model can be created within the hub, or we can also create it from outside hub. Yeah. That's it. Now the next is what our other component which we have in this MDM hub is going to be what? Quality component. Yeah. So quality component will be used in order to take care of quality activities like data cleansing, data enrichment, standardization, or any other cleansing activities. Yeah? So which means what this is where what MDM is not that great, especially Informatica MDM. So in such cases, what do we need to do? We need to find a way like how to integrate this particular MDM hub with what third-party quality tools. For example, if you take a Trillium, which is good for what? Name standardization, zip code standardization, and so on. Yeah, or global, what you call standardization, all that. Yeah, but we don't have it within this MDM. But if you want, we can do it by writing a Java code, but it will take a lot of time to write it and make it stable, all that, right? That is why we always go with what? Usage of third-party tools. Yeah, fine. So, which means what we can start making use of this quality component just to perform data cleansing, nothing beyond that. Which means we clean the data, make it available for actual core part of MDM. Yeah? There's a question from Samson. Can we use external modeling tools? We can use external modeling tools to model. For example, let's say Erwin, design a model. Entities or subject areas, and build relationship and make the model ready. Once it is done, then I'll talk about one interface tool within this MDM, which is going to help us to integrate third-party modeling tool with this model with this particular MDM hub, so that we don't need to recreate a model over here, Samson. To answer a question, how to integrate, we have metadata manager tool. Samson, I'll talk about it. I've just answered because you asked here.